back to Power Without Permission. I'm your host, Siobhan O'Donnell, and today's guest is a woman who truly embodies this show's mission, Jenn Lay. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Jenn, for anyone who doesn't know you, could you describe yourself just a little bit?
You know what's interesting? I find that to be a really hard question, probably because I just went through a bit of an identity crisis ever since becoming a mother, really. Is it, do I label myself a mother, a wife, or do I default back to my professions? But I guess the easiest way to put it is, yes, I am a mother to a toddler boy that's two
Yeah.
and a half, a very energetic one. I am a wife. I'm a practicing managing lawyer at Shine Lawyers, which is a personal injury firm. I'm also a law academic, and I also run a leadership consulting business on the side. And I have a couple of fitness clients that I do through Sculpt Republic as well. So yeah, just a couple of things happening.
You're just absolutely killing it, basically. I was having like moments of like, oh my God, Jenn Lay's coming. So I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about what your life was like growing up to how you've gotten here. So I wanted to just quickly cover it a little bit and just ask you, what was life like growing up in Housing Commission in Richmond?
Yeah, so it's I look back and it's really interesting to really sit back and appreciate where I am in life now, and it comes from a very large sense of gratitude for what my parents have given myself and my brother. So my parents are from East Timor. They escaped the Indonesian War, migrated to Australia, and at the time the government supported a lot of the East Timorese coming in. So we were placed in commission housing in Richmond. And for those that don't know Richmond, it's a very low socioeconomic area.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's still a lot of drug deals that happen right on the streets.
Yeah.
So my childhood was growing up in commission flats, lived a very simple life and a very, I guess, a limited life as well, where having very little was my normal. So limitation was like pretty much what I thought was my normal. So I didn't really grow up having any toys as well because my parents couldn't afford it. My parents basically took any job they could find to make ends meet. So my mum worked in the textiles industry. My father worked in laborious jobs, where it be forklift driving or in machinery operation work. So really growing up, I really saw how hard my parents worked. And we had very little. Like I remember even going to the shops and be like, Mum, can I have this Barbie doll? And she would say things like, we can't afford anything like that. It's just about the food that we need for the week. So it's definitely quite a contrast to where I am now.
Yeah, massive contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's kind of shaped how you parent as well, like becoming a mum? Has that earlier time in your life kind of not having as much as what you'd like, do you feel like you want to spoil your son a lot more? Or
That's a fantastic question. I think it's a bit of both. Having had to work pretty hard myself. So once I turned 14 years and 9 months, I went and got a job at KFC so I could buy
KFC,
buy a pair of jeans. And I remember, I was earning $4.64 an hour, and I remember that particular amount because I couldn't even afford a two-piece feed on my lunch break with my hourly rate.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing in my view when I was 14 and a half, because it's like, wow, I can actually make money now and not have to rely on my parents who were still doing it quite tough. But in terms of how I parent my son, it's a bit of both in the sense that my husband and I have worked hard to build a very good investment portfolio and have financial flexibility.
Yeah.
So we are in a position where we can spoil Sam, where he's in private gymnastics. He undertakes soccer, tennis, swimming. So he does a lot of activities for a 2-year-old, and we are able to afford that, and we can afford to have him in daycare. So I can go back to my roles in legal and academia, but at the same time, I do want to instill a sense of work ethic in him and know that things do come when you do make the effort for it. So it is a fine balance of ensuring that there isn't a high level of, I guess, entitlement, but also my purpose ever since I had Sam is to basically give him the life best life possible. So yeah, it's trying to strike that tricky balance of both, really.
Yeah, it can be really difficult. And so what would you say is one of those moments in that time frame when you were younger that's kind of, I guess, shaped who you are now?
Yeah, there's been a couple. Obviously, growing up with what I thought was like a limited lifestyle, and that was as best as I'll get. My
Mm.
parents having their education robbed of them when they were in grade six. So myself, I'm basically the first generation having gone to university. So that was a big milestone in terms of really changing the narrative of what we could become as East Timorese communities. There are still parts of our family that are still in commission housing at the moment in Richmond,
Yeah.
whereas my parents have worked hard to move us out to the suburbs and the like. But I think the biggest part in my past that has really shaped me is something that happened to me that was quite unfortunate when I was 16. I essentially mixed with the wrong crowd. Unfortunately, I became quite heavily involved in drugs and going to nightclubs with a fake ID. And at the time, prior to mixing with this particular crowd, I had no, I really struggled to make friends.
Mm.
Being from an Asian background, the schools I attended, there were European and Australians, and I didn't really have any sense of belonging and
Didn't feel
fitting
like you
in.
fit in. I
That
can relate.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and then suddenly I found these friends that were similar ethnicity. So naturally, I felt like I found my tribe, which is
Mm.
one of the core human needs, and it was just that this tribe was heavily involved in sabotaging behavior with the illicit drugs, not prioritizing schooling. So I ended up dropping out of high school at year 11 as well. And there was one incident where I started actually dating a European man, and that didn't gel well with the group, and there was a bit of tension, and essentially there was a physical altercation where I was beat up by three of them. Two of them were males,
Wow.
one of them was female. So I was gang assaulted, and I ended up in hospital with a concussion, which essentially lasted a week where I was bedbound. And when the hospital actually called my parents because I was under 18 at the time,
Yeah.
and my parents were already finding it very difficult to manage me in this Western world,
Mm.
and my mum pretty much said, "Look, you deserve this," and hung up and didn't. And basically, they didn't come and collect me from the hospital. And that point in time, I realized, oh wow, no one's actually here to save me. I don't have my so-called friends. My family's not supporting me. I actually have hit rock bottom where I'm physically, emotionally, and mentally just lost and drained. And at that point in time, I just said to myself, I don't want to feel this crap anymore. And I have to do something about it. I really
Mm.
do. I need to take control of my life. And I'd just been going through downward spirals in cycles for a couple of years from 16 to 17 and almost 18. So I thought, look, I really need to do something. And just from experiencing my own injustice in that assault where I didn't really have any legal avenues through
Mm.
victims of crime, that's where it really sparked my curiosity of advocacy and considering a career in legal. And that was really my turning point where I just felt that I couldn't hit any lower and that the only thing I could do was pick myself up and really back myself. Because what I found through that whole process is no one had faith in me. But what hurt most is I didn't have faith in myself, and I lost myself in that process. So that was probably the biggest turning point for me. Discovering, okay, I will need to get my life on track. My new purpose is to be an advocate.
Mm.
And I said to my then new group of friends, I'm going to go off and be a lawyer and go to the best law.
Wow.
Yeah,
So from that point of time, you just
yeah,
went, it's time to advocate, and you just stepped into that. You're like, I'm going to do it kind of thing.
that's right. And I said, look, I need to go to law school, and it has to be Monash Law, which is one of the best law schools in Melbourne. And I had a couple of people laugh, including my parents, saying, Jen, you dropped out of high school. How are you going to get into Monash Law, which is essentially a 99 HS score.
Yeah.
And the Taurus stubbornness in me just said, just watch me.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
So, and this is where it really was that discovering that relationship with myself, where I had to really back myself and go, I can do this. There is a lot of doubt happening, but I can't let that fuel me. I need to let my self-confidence fuel me. So it was a long path going back to school, finishing it, not having the marks, so going to TAFE for 2 years, going to a college that connected me to university for another year, and then undertaking 2 bachelor degrees before I had the marks to actually get into Monash Law. So it was a 7.5-year journey, and then, as you will know, then you do practical legal training. So it was about 9 years before I then actually became
a lawyer.
Yeah. So
wow. So that's a very long journey.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
But it just made it all more gratifying, and it made me realize I actually deserve to be here because I worked for it. And when you want something so bad, you will not let any obstacle get in your way. Like, was it hard? Of course. Was it frustrating that it took more than a couple of years, essentially double the time that it would to do it? A law degree for any other school graduate, yes. But when I got there, it just showed like I belonged there. I could essentially do, and that was a turning point that made me realize I can actually dominate in anything I can do. And it wasn't then at that point about me anymore. It's about the fact that I can now demonstrate to others in the same position that it didn't matter that I came from commission housing, or that I didn't have the right marks to go to the best law school in Melbourne. You can still get there. There is always a way. You make a way.
Yeah, because I think that's been drilled into a lot of people when they want to do the whole law path, is that you have to have the highest grades possible in order to get into it. And then when you think about that, there is other avenues. It's not just a straight path. You can still make it, you know. So what limiting beliefs do you think you had to, I guess, confront and change so that you could get to this level of success?
There was definitely a lot. There was a lot from a subconscious level. So coming from my mother's Chinese, and she's very traditional with her conservative views. So there was a lot of subconscious limiting beliefs just from her going, actually just her doubts. So that became quite ingrained in me that I couldn't do it. I wasn't good enough. I shouldn't be, with the Chinese culture, you shouldn't be too bold or outspoken, and you should really limit yourself and be more passive. So I had to actually be conscious and break away from basically how I had been wired in my childhood growing up from my own upbringing, but also really being cognizant of how are these limiting self-beliefs serving me? Is it actually productive, or is it holding me back? So really having to rewire myself, and I went through a bit of a journey of educating myself on it's called neuroplasticity, but basically as adults we can still rewire our own thoughts. Yeah. So really just having to do that, and it's still a work in practice. I still to this day will default to self-limiting beliefs and thoughts, but it's about really looking at what is the intrinsic goal and value here, and really focusing on the whys to really push through those self-limiting beliefs.
And you are also into bodybuilding as well, which is crazy because I can tell you're into bodybuilding. What do you think bodybuilding has taught you that nothing else can teach you?
Yes. So it definitely teaches you a whole new level of self-discipline. It teaches you a very high level of organisation as well. So the last competition I did I started when I was 16 months postpartum. So as a mother with a son that didn't sleep through the night and will wake up twice a night, that was extremely, you wouldn't resonate, Siobhan, it's extremely difficult. So it's about, going back to the sense of intrinsic values. It's like, why am I doing this? And a lot of people would look at bodybuilding as quite vain and, you know, getting on a stage in a bikini and doing it for the gram.
The vanity aspect of it.
Exactly. Yeah. But for me, it was to prove to a point and this is what really drove me. It wasn't about me. It was to prove to other mothers, because there's a lot of anxiety when women fall pregnant about their postpartum body. So I wanted to prove to other mothers that with the right mindset, you can actually go back to not just your pre-baby state, but even better.
A whole new level.
Exactly.
Mm.
So that's what really drove me. But what it taught me is learning a high level of organization, self-discipline, sacrifice as well, and also delayed gratification, which is something that we really don't have. We've lost a bit of in this world of you know, having everything at your fingertips. If you
Yeah.
want a meal, you click on Uber Eats. If you
Yeah.
want a ride, you click on your app. But with bodybuilding, it's delayed gratification. Did I want to reach a Snickers bar? Did I want to, you know, have a couple of cocktails? Of course I did. But for the 6 months, which is how long the preparation did take, it taught me how to really exercise my inner strength with delayed gratification. And once again, the relationship with myself. Do I respect myself enough to honor the promise that I will follow
Made to
this diet?
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think when was the first time you kind of ever went into a gym? Like, were you always into powerlifting and lifting weights and stuff, or was that not a part of your life?
It has been for a while now. So I think this year is going on 11 years. So
Wow.
started early on during uni.
Yeah.
I did an internship in Shanghai, came back 10 kilos heavier, and I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. So I thought, once again, I am in control of this situation. There is no one to blame. Went on a weight loss journey and realized how powerful lifting weights was. And 10, 11 years ago, and I love that it is more common for women to be in the gym lifting weights now, but 10, 11 years ago, I was the only female in the weight section of gyms, and it was daunting, but it's so equally empowering to know that I can smash iron as much as all these men around me, and it's becoming less of a male-dominated exercise now. But the what it did for my mental health was astronomical, and that's why, you know, weight training 11 years straight now has been essentially what is for me within my control. But to loop it back to your question, yes, it's been around for 10, 11 years, and just wanting to make, I guess, take things to the next level and really test our level of capacity. That's when bodybuilding and Olympic lifting and powerlifting really came in, just to see really how far can I push this to show other women, especially other women, that you can do anything that the next person or a man can do, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said that adversity is a blessing. What's a moment that's become real for you?
Adversity is definitely a blessing, because without that we don't learn and grow. If we live in a life of comfort, we're living in a state of complacency essentially, and we cannot be strong. And as a mother, you start to really rewire that and realize that we need to be strong for our children as well. Just I guess the adversity from my upbringing, and to be really raw with you, a big one was when I was 12. I was actually sexually assaulted by my great uncle, and in our culture, we don't talk about these things. We keep it a secret. So I confided in my mother at the time, and she said, if that's disclosed, we will lose respect, because it was her uncle. So I essentially had to live with that for most of my life, and it's taken me 10 years of ongoing therapy to be able to talk about it like this quite openly. And without becoming emotional, and essentially detach myself from that situation. But that was probably the biggest adversity in me, in a sense that I do think it contributed to my downward spiral in my teen years. But it's also driven me to go, well, I can't control parts of my past that have definitely caused a lot of distress, but I have a lot of control for my future. And I can be strong, not just for myself, but for other people as well.
And what would you say to, say, another young girl? Because culture definitely does play a big influence in regards to young girls coming forward about matters like that. What would you say to that young girl? Like, if you could speak to her again as Jenn Lay now, what would you say?
I would say you need to follow your intuition, and you need to really back yourself. And it's really difficult, using my example as my 12-year-old Jenn Lay. I didn't know any better, and the only support person I had was my mother, who at the time unfortunately let me down. So, if I could speak to her now, I would say, you have a voice. I know you've been told that you don't, but you are important, you are valued, you are loved, and you have a right to voice what's happened to you to someone else, to the police,
Mm.
because there needs to be accountability. Because what I went through at that time, it no doubt really impacted my level of self confidence and my ability to this day still struggle with intimacy with my husband, who
Mm.
is very understanding of my situation. And I'll be frank, I still see a psychologist to this day to manage those difficulties. But it really is understanding. Unfortunately, sometimes it is the closest people that you can find in that you ask for. You require the support from that may not give it to you, and
Mm.
being strong enough to just back yourself and go, this is not right. Who else can I reach out to actually take this further? Because I should not be suffering alone. So that's the biggest point. You're not alone. There will be people that care and listen.
Yeah.
If it's not your immediate family or friends, be rest assured that you do need to have the strength to reach out to others. There are people out there that will care and support you.
And you spoke a little bit about your husband and you, I guess, supporting each other through that, which is so beautiful. So, how long ago when did you meet your husband, firstly?
Yeah, so it's been 6 years, and you never think that something like Tinder works, but it worked, and it's quite a funny story because I was only on there for a couple of days, and there was a really hot pic of him with a six pack, and I just I swiped and thought he looks delicious,
Yeah, yeah.
and I actually thought, yeah, that would just be a bit of a fling, and then we hooked up, and then he kind of just stayed around, and I thought, okay, you seem like the real deal. And I learned that, he had a very, he's a Italian, so comes from a very loving, connected family background, very sincere. And, and I joked about it at our wedding, I swiped for the abs, but I stayed for the heart and personality. So yeah, I wasn't, it was the most least expected thing to prosper. But now, 6 years on, married, have a beautiful son, have a great life together. But
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you just don't know when you do meet your one.
And he is in the military?
Yes, that's right. So my husband has been in the military for 22 years now. So
Wow.
that's pretty much majority of his working life, and he absolutely loves it. And being a military wife is definitely can sometimes be challenging. So, for example, we've moved up here to Brisbane because he has received a posting up here.
Yeah.
So we've had to leave a lot of support behind, being his parents, my parents, friends, our son's cousins and the like. And an extra layer to that is that he does go away a lot to, say, Caloundra or Townsville, or at times they may ask him to go overseas as well.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally that makes it quite challenging with a 2-year-old, where I am trying to balance 3 different jobs at the same time.
Yeah.
What is the answer? It is just really trying to balance what's in front of you at the very time. There is no, I think, sense of balance. But I look back at, sometimes I feel a sense of resentment, but then I look at the bigger picture and realize he's doing a very admirable job in serving our nation, and there's a lot of peace and a lot of things we take for granted, because what the military doing now is a lot of the peacekeeping things in the background that we don't
actually know about or think
Exactly.
about. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's an honor, I guess, to be a wife of somebody that's serving our country.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had your beautiful boy.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you were diagnosed with cancer, kidney cancer, at 38 weeks pregnant.
Yes.
Take us back to that time.
Yes.
And what was your mindset during that time? Because, oh my God, at 38 weeks, I was struggling towards the end of having my boy, and I was constantly in and out of the hospital, and I didn't have anything like that obviously occur. But how did you manage that? Like, take us back there, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really crazy story, and when we talk about being grateful for adversity, that one completely slips my mind, because I, in a sense, didn't give power to the adversity, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
it is really about how much emotion and power you give to situations. But basically, at 38 weeks pregnant, I was running around town to driving to all the daycare centres to put him on a waiting list
Yeah.
because you need to do it before you give
Before you
birth.
even have the baby.
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And
Yeah.
I was going 60 k's an hour. A car pulled out in front of me. The car in front of me broke, but my car wasn't able to brake in time, so it hit the car in front of me at 60 an hour. My engine actually went up in flames
Oh
because
my
of the
goodness.
impact. The airbags came out,
Yeah.
and I think I actually had a mild concussion because I blacked out momentarily, and the only thing I remember is a lady that was behind me opening up the door and saying, "Let me help you out." And all I could say is, I'm pregnant, help me and my baby."
Mm.
So the ambulance and the fire brigade were there in like a second. It was amazing. And once they saw that I was heavily pregnant, they took me to the Royal Melbourne Hospital, which is next to the Royal Women's Hospital. Um, they did their due diligence in scanning Sam's heartbeat for 6 hours straight, just to make sure there were no it would go back to a regular rate. For the first couple of hours, it was very high, so clearly that was stressful.
Yeah.
They then did a whole body scan on me. They said, look, if you do have any damage to any of your organs, we'll need to do a C-section here right now,
Yeah.
and we have the facilities. So my heart dropped a bit because I was aiming for a natural birth, but obviously babies first. And
Yeah.
they did a full body scan and said, look, you've got a bit of whiplash in your neck. Your baby's going to be fine. You don't need a C-section, but look, we've found a tumor in your right kidney. We don't want you to fret. We'll call you tomorrow about doing a biopsy. And then I was discharged. The next morning they call me. They say, we don't need a biopsy. It's measured at 4.5 centimeters, so you have cancer. I'm like, and this is on the phone. So I'm driving on the
Yeah.
freeway and I just froze and I missed about 3 freeway exits, and the surgeon is saying, are you there? Are you there? I'm like, sorry, are you saying that you're diagnosing me with kidney cancer? And he said, yes, we don't need a biopsy because of the size of it. It's definitely cancer. And I said, how am I not having symptoms? And he told me that it was at the stage before it became aggressive.
Okay.
So I learned that basically with cancer, there are different stages before they become essentially grow faster.
Yeah.
So they said to me, look, we can't take it out right now because your baby is there, but once you give birth, you need to come back and we need to take out the tumor. So I gave birth, and as you would appreciate, your core and your back are completely weak
Gone.
post-birth.
Yeah.
So 2 months postpartum, I went in and they removed the tumor, and it was a very difficult recovery where I couldn't even incline on the bed due to the weakness. I was essentially trying to express lopsided, trying to
Yeah.
regain my strength. And I look back now and, you know, before I gave birth, those couple of weeks and before my surgery to remove the cancer, people said to me, are you not stressed about the situation? And I said, me being stressed is only going to send the wrong type of signals to my baby that's not yet born. Knowing stressed mum creates a stressed baby. So I
Yeah.
said,
And that's so true because people don't even think about that when you're pregnant. But I used to be the same. I stress anything in a different box in my brain. Like I just did not want it affecting the baby. So I can definitely appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah. So I just had to be strong. And I learnt that I follow a lot of Stoic philosophy. And one of the phases that sticks with me is to control the controllables. I cannot control that there is a diagnosis of cancer. I am grateful that I don't have any symptoms. And I can control on focusing on the fact that there is a solution, which is to remove the cancer. So really just focusing on the controllables is what got me through those couple of months. And just coming from a place of love rather than distress. I can sit there being distressed about this tumor, but I can come from a place of love where I'm about to give birth to a beautiful boy that I've created with my husband.
Yeah.
So a lot of the focus came from that, which made it all a lot more of a smoother journey. And with that chapter, it's almost over. Well, I say almost over is they've removed the tumor, so I technically still have half of the right kidney.
Yeah.
Late last year, they did a scan and there's been actually a new growth.
Oh no.
Yeah, but and because there are no symptoms, they're just monitoring it every 6 months. Right now they classify it as benign because it hasn't grown in centimeters, but there is something happening there. But I think about the worst case scenario, and I joked about it to my surgeon, where I said, "Well, lucky I've still got my left one working," and that is exactly it. So,
Yeah.
and he said, "Look, that's the best mentality you have, and we don't want to operate just for the sake of operating,
Yeah.
because my core is still quite weak from post birth and post the first surgery as well."
Yeah, and people think that for some reason you're meant to just bounce back after having babies, but even if you have the whole mentality of before being pregnant, getting your core and everything ready, as soon as you're pregnant, it's gone. It's just
It definitely is.
it's impossible.
It is.
And did you kind of struggle, I guess, with your postpartum journey then? Because I would imagine that would have been a bit chaotic. I mean, you like everybody has the emotions after having their baby and then you've got the surgery. Was there anything that you kind of told yourself to, I guess, also be able to enjoy that time with Bubby? Because you would have just had him and you would have been in that like baby bubble, but then that part of you also would have been thinking, oh my God, I've got cancer. Like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, it was a very interesting time because I was going through a sense of loss of identity. So, going from like I guess, a very successful lawyer where I was managing a team of under 10, a university academic with a team behind me as well. So, very, I guess, like high powered roles to then suddenly changing a nappy every 90 minutes and
Yeah.
breastfeeding every, there's I read about 10 guidebooks, but none of them said that you're going to basically breastfeed, like, and Sam loved to drink milk, so it was every 90 minutes I was breastfeeding him.
Yeah.
So it was, quite repetitive, and there's no mental stimulation. Dave went back to work. He at times went away for work as well. So the days became quite mundane, but what really got me through is remembering they're not this little forever, and one day they will be, and that's the beauty of bringing a life, into the world. Like, you witness your child that goes from essentially the size of a blueberry inside of you come into this world as a newborn. You nurse them, and one day, before you know it, they're going to not want to hug you back, especially boys.
No, they're going to be out in their cars, living their best life.
So it was really saying that Sam is not going to be little forever, and I really need to embrace this time in my life where, I've been very masculine energy driven with my profession. So really just turning a lot of the yang energy to more the yin energy and just leaning into it. Although I do find it to be a struggle, but appreciating that I am a woman and we women have this amazing gift to create life. That's a reality.
But balancing, I guess, mum, lawyer, all these other big titles that you have.
Yeah.
And I love how you talk about that masculine energy that you need to have, I guess, but you also have to have that feminine energy. What other tips would you give to somebody else in your kind of shoes, or me really, selfishly, going into that kind of lawyer mindset, especially when you're first starting out, but then you've also got a child and you've got that mindset where you're going. Like, that's where I feel like me and you relate in a lot of ways, because it's just like we're not like the standard, like that's the one job that we have. We've got to be like, what kind of tips would you have in relation to kind of managing those energies, like that masculine energy versus that femininity? I mean, I know having a child, I guess, does bring out that more feminine side of you, but obviously you've got to balance it, right?
Yes. It's first of all, a big one is parenting is a partnership, and having the conversation with your husbands or partners to say this, the reality is for the first 6 months, you are the lifeline to your newborn. So it is heavily reliant on you as a mother to breastfeed and do the maternity leave time. But after that, it is really having the frank conversation with the partner to say that this is a partnership and we both equally look after this child. So Dave, when he's not away from work, he does really step it up. And he essentially allows me to do what I love to do. So, for example, he does all the bedtime routines every night up until this day.
Yeah.
I do the mornings, and in betweens, he'll actually take the initiative to do a lot of the work as well. So that I think I just need to acknowledge that. Yes, I can sit here and say I'm a fantastic lawyer, fantastic fitness coach, and academic and mother, but the reality is I cannot do this without my husband taking the brunt of sacrificing at times, sometimes his time to go to the gym. Like sometimes the days are so, you know what it's like,
Yeah.
are so hectic that we actually both don't get to the gym. We both even can't get a 20-minute run in. And sometimes and I think it's because he's so comfortable in his masculine that he says, I'm okay to give up this recreational time of mine so you can have that space, because I acknowledge that you've done, you know, the hard yards earlier on when Sam was a newborn. So that is definitely one of the keys to how I'm able to do it all.
Is by having that supportive man in your life.
Definitely. That is not intimidated by doing some of the motherly duties. Like Dave is not afraid to cook, clean, and really take ownership of some of the activities that some people still traditionally default to the mother. And I'm really grateful that I have a husband that's really open to that. And like I said, it's because he's so comfortable with himself. He doesn't feel that there's no ego or any threat to him in doing that. But secondly, you end up merging the two. So when I lecture from home and I'm in my element, I have Sam colouring next to me. So you really end up putting all the, you know, your what you're doing outside of a mum with your mum duties. There was a lot less gym time and a lot more sprinting with the stroller in the earlier days.
I can relate.
and that's how you merge the two and get it all done. And yes, there are moments where still I'm in my masculine energy when I go off to work in the office, and I can be that. But when I go back, I save that softness with Sam. And I have to admit, some of the times it's a struggle because the masculine energy is a lot about the control element, the structure, and you don't have that with a toddler. So it's really learning which, you know, how do I channel, you know, that level of resistance. It's basically not when I'm at home with Sam. That's when I do need to essentially let go and focus on just really going with the flow. That's been the biggest learning lesson for me. You just a lot of pivoting and adapting to the situation when it's in the parenting space, and then controlling once again the controllables when I'm at work, and then that's when I can still have the gratification of being in that dominating energy in a way.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to so much of that. It just feels like there's so many times where you have to just go with the flow, and changing my mindset personally has allowed me to do this. It's allowed me to do many other things because I'm able to just adapt, you know. So with that, what inspired you to create Jenn Consulting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it was something that was on my mind for years. It really was. I even registered the ABN probably 6-7 years ago, but never did anything. So when we moved up to Brisbane from Melbourne, that was the catalyst to go, I have the space and the financial flexibility. So I took a 9-month break from practicing in the law and started Jenn Consulting, where it's essentially teaching leaders and teams how to function in more harmony. Because what I noticed as a manager in the law and in academia is university doesn't teach you emotional intelligence or emotional awareness, and everyone's parents do an amazing job to the best of their ability to ingrain emotional regulation with their children, but the reality is there's no guidebook to parenting to teach that to your children either. So for me, in being in leadership in my professions, I just self-educated through, you know, back then there wasn't any podcasts, so it was just reading books, Tony Robbins books, Ray Dalio books, Jim Rohn, and also just reading every Harvard Business Review that talked about leadership and the importance of people skills communication, self-awareness and the like. And I do feel like being an academic myself, that was the missing piece between, being textbook ready and career ready as well. So
Mm.
trying to merge that gap, that's where Gen Lay Consulting came from in terms of being that facilitator in having people, technical, brilliant people understand that's not just the ticket to success, especially in the leadership space.
Mm.
It's also getting what I call the soft skills right in terms of understanding oneself so you can understand others as well and work with them better in a way that becomes more effective and efficient. And also from a place of authenticity as well, because in this day and age, and we're kind of swamped with consumerism and the like, people are so afraid to be judged and be themselves now. Like I
Yeah.
think it's really powerful to have people have more self-awareness.
Yeah, and that's really, really important. And I guess with that, how do you help others lead themselves first?
Yeah, so through I guess like the consulting business, it can be consultations I have, but ideally working with teams and running workshops and having them be very practical. So I've created like a lot of practical frameworks with my business mentor, who Tam Meyer, and that's something I teach them, which is like hands-on tools in terms of this is what we do in this situation. How do you bring these frameworks into your day-to-day life? And with my fitness coaching background, it comes from a very holistic sense as well, where it's like if you can't lead yourself by ensuring that you have your pillars of life right, you can't lead others. So if your health, wealth, relationships are not essentially
Aligned.
you won't be able to help others do that as well. So hence why a big part of the consulting I do is not just going, how do you be a better person for others, but how do you be the best version of yourself? Because then the rest takes care of itself.
And you can tell that you've got that sorted, because even when you walked in today, I was like, wow, you've got that energy about you that's very like assertive, but not assertive, if that makes sense. It's really cool. And what's one myth about success or leadership that you'd love to, I guess, bust or break?
Yeah, success. I think the biggest myth about success is that it is the title or the money. I say that because I thought that was what it was, and I was infatuated with not just the advocacy side of being a lawyer, but it is definitely a high paid industry. And being in management roles at national top tier law firms, I was obviously compensated very well. And
Yeah.
academia is the same space; it's a well paid industry. But what I learned with that is essentially the more I moved up the hierarchy of management and the more money I made, the more stressed I was in terms of just the responsibilities at times, but also the income coming in. So I guess the biggest myth is that the money in the position isn't going to buy you the happiness that you think you want. Where the real gratification and fulfillment has been is, how have I impacted the people that I'm leading? What friendships have I built? I've moved on from 2 different law firms, but I still remain really close friends with the people there. And it doesn't matter if it's the partner of the firm or my legal secretaries. We become very close friends, have become very close friends, still connected. And that's, I think, that to me is what success is. Success is the depth of the relationships that you have with people and the quality of connections over the quantity as well. So I do think that some people still, especially dealing with students at the university I teach, they're all striving for top tier national firms and they're striving for big figures. And I tell them that will give you, a bit of an ego boost. But in terms of fulfillment, a core human need is connection, and the money and the title just does not satisfy that as much as we think it will. It won't.
And so with that, I guess being a lawyer, there is a lot of, I guess, what you're talking about, how it's basically like, oh, we go to law school and then we get this really well-paying job after a couple years and then we've made it, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that is such an important point that I feel as well, is like impact is more fulfilling than money, because you've got to balance it at the end of the day, right? It's not
Yes.
just, oh my God, like there's my Rolls Royce or there's my whatever. Like,
Yes.
does it really truly matter? And it's
Yes.
good to hear you say that because it's so refreshing because I feel like there is, especially as a university student, there is that thing with other university students where it's like, we're not, we're only doing this because, oh, we're going to be a lawyer and, oh, we get
Yes.
to drive the car or whatever.
Yes.
So that's really, really good. So I guess with that, how did you unlearn perfectionism? Because that would also come into play with being a lawyer and all the things that you'd have to carry in that title.
Yes, and can I just say, law students and lawyers all have a type A personality. It's just the personality that is drawn
Yeah.
to the degree, and it is definitely a privilege to be a solicitor. You're in that role where you have power to advocate for other people. It is like I tell my students and my graduates at work all the time, we are in a position where people trust us with their lives in the
Yeah.
advice we give them. But to circle back to your question, perfectionism, if you're aiming for it, I do see perfection being perfect as a ceiling. So if you hit that perceived idea of perfect, where are you going to go next?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so I'll say to her, it's a ceiling. We don't want to hit that ceiling. We just want, so for me, the golden word is progress, because progress can look different every day. In my first 12 months postpartum, progress was being able to drive to Coles, sleep deprived, to get some more formula for Sam, for example. That's not perfect. In the perfect world, I would be, having a good supply of milk as a mum, but I didn't. So having that mindset about being perfect is only going to cause a lot of distress and self-imposed criticism and the like. And everyone's perfect looks different. But if we literally change the dialogue from perfect to progress, it gives you hope and momentum, because every day, anything you do is progress. It really is. You being able to go to the gym for 10 minutes rather than being perfect and going for 45 minutes is still better than nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the real power of changing that dialogue. So no, I used to chase perfect, but it just causes more distress than good. But progress, that's what gets you places. And going back from like the bodybuilding side of things, people say, how can you, how are you able to do a bodybuilding competition after having a baby? Because I just worked on progress with the gym before baby, during baby, and after baby. And that's what, that's what the building blocks were in order to create and meet that goal. Just really perfecting the progress over the perceived perfect outcome.
Yeah, and with working out, especially when you're a postpartum mum, it's kind of best to, like you said, just go with the flow because,
Yes.
like, I used to have like a 5-6 day workout routine,
Yeah.
and some days, like, if I try and force myself to kind of get to the gym in the evenings after I've done everything with my son, but some days, especially with work and everything else, you're just so exhausted. So you're like, okay, can I get like a 10-minute run in? Can I do
Yeah.
something? So I
Yes.
guess that's really important, I guess, to share with other mums too, is like, I don't think everybody's doing it all in the way that they say that they're doing, especially on social media. And like to just go with the flow, really.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm in a great place now, getting my fitness back on track. But I didn't work out for most of my 9 months of pregnancy. I had nausea, trimester 1, pelvic girdle pain, trimester 3. So it really is like a lot of self compassion, and knowing progress for me was literally being able to get out of bed,
Yeah.
and that was my mark of progress, and that is completely okay.
And growing a healthy, beautiful baby boy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you, I guess, first started off as a lawyer, what was your, I guess, main thing that you felt you struggled with a lot when you first started? Or do you feel like it just was a natural thing, you just built up your skill?
There was definitely a lot of struggle. There was a sense of imposter syndrome, like, am I good enough? So my dream law firm was Slater and Gordon Lawyers, and I spent 9 years there. So got into my dream law firm. So it was a sense of, do I belong here? Everyone else has had mums and fathers that are judges and doctors, whereas my parents, and I felt a lot of shame as well. I was like, I hit it at the start, but now I'm very proud of my parents. But, I felt like I didn't fit in because I didn't come from similar socioeconomic background,
Mm.
but that all just makes it more rewarding where I am. So I was dealing with my own self-imposed limiting thoughts and imposter syndrome. And also it was definitely challenging. I worked in a suburban office of the firm where it was still quite Caucasian. And I still remember one of my first clients where he was a very sophisticated project engineer for the major railway system in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down with him as a baby junior lawyer, a woman of colour. And I said to him, your case is worth 100 grand for this reason. And he said to me, pretty much that's bullshit. I don't believe your advice. And as, as a junior lawyer, it's very hard to then, really exert the dominance for someone that is double your age, that is, like I said, quite a sophisticated client. So I brought in my supervisor, who was incidentally also a middle-aged Caucasian man, and he voiced the same advice, and my client took my supervisor's advice. So you can imagine how I would have felt at the time. And at that point in time, it made me realize it came from a place of unconscious bias by this particular client.
Mm.
And I did actually have to deal a lot with that, and appreciate, and it was quite frustrating. A lot of them were barristers, so still a lot of barristers to this day are middle-aged white men.
Mm.
Either have had barristers actually tell me to shut up, and or shush. I've had one barrister indirectly say women still belong in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So I had to really remember I came from a place of power, so I essentially stopped briefing them, stopped giving them work, but also wanted to ensure that I held my integrity. So I didn't talk badly of them. I just said, I just choose not to work with particular barristers like this. So the biggest struggle I felt was coming from a place of being a woman of colour, actually. And I also look very young for my age. So so that also I felt like there was a lot of doubt from more the more senior barristers and clients. But I told myself, well, I actually know these files a lot better than these barristers and these clients realise. So it was a work in progress and building my own confidence through years. So that was probably the biggest struggle. But once again, I had to believe in my advice enough to ensure to tell it to my client or the barristers. So if I didn't back myself, they would just stomp on me. So I really had to exert that level of assertiveness.
So if you were speaking to another, I guess, young lawyer, female, Caucasian, who is just starting, what advice would you give her?
Surround yourself with good mentors. You'd be surprised at how generous the legal profession is. So I cold DM'd female barristers on LinkedIn. I attended networking events on my own. I was very introverted back then. And you are surprised at the generosity of the right type of mentors out there. So having those, very daunting experiences with particular people in the profession, I don't believe they are bad people. I think everyone is inherently good, and some people just have a very high level of unconscious bias. Also appreciating the generational gap and cultural gap there as well.
Yeah.
So if there's not support from that side of things, then go out of your way to find support in other means, and it will always be there. Even reach out to me as a senior lawyer now. I've been through it for over a decade, and I completely understand what it's like. But you just really need to back yourself. You deserve it. You belong. Where people inherently think they're not good enough because our consumerism society says that to us, that if you don't wear this out brand, you're not good enough. If you don't do this, you're not good enough. But everyone is good enough and has a place for success. I believe we can all be like Elon Musk, essentially. And the only thing that stops us is our level of confidence and trust in ourselves.
Wow, that is so amazing. And I guess you've built now a very powerful community. So what responsibility comes with that kind of visibility?
It's first of all, walking the talk, as they say. So really looking at what the core values are and also doing it as well. And coming from a place of strength. So and that really gives me strength as well, knowing that my why is to provide strength to others. So being able to show up every day and say, it's actually not about me. It's about how I can really empower and inspire other, especially women and women of color as well, and young mums and mums to be. But it's actually the community that gives me strength in order to give strength back to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
amazing. And I guess now that we're kind of wrapping up, what does power without permission mean to you?
I feel like this whole conversation has been about that.
Yeah.
Don't wait for anyone to tell you that you can do it. I have spent my childhood being raised by parents who didn't essentially know any better. There was a massive generational and cultural misalignment being born in Australia compared to my parents growing up in a third world country where they essentially told me I shouldn't have a voice. As an Asian woman, I should be quiet and passive and not agitate situations and being harmonious.
Mm.
So being quiet was their definition of being harmonious. So power without permission is knowing we all have a place to be leaders. You don't need to wait for the title to be a leader as well. So you go for it and don't wait for someone to encourage you to go for it. You, once again, I say over and over again, but it is what it is. You need to trust and back yourself and realize that relationship with yourself is the most important aspect of and going, I'm fucking amazing and I can actually go for anything I want, and you just do it. And the worst feeling is knowing that you didn't give it a shot.
Yeah. I love that so much. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Siobhan.